It's noon in ancient Egypt. The year is 1350 BCE. Outside, the temperature is over 43 centigrade, 110 Fahrenheit. You have no air conditioner, no electric fan, no refrigerator, and you're about to spend the day working. Sounds unbearable. Except ancient Egyptians didn't survive the heat by simply being tougher than us. They did something smarter. They turned their homes, clothing, water, streets, and daily schedule into one giant cooling system. And the first part of that system was made of mud. Many Egyptian homes were built from thick mud bricks made from Nile silt and straw. Primitive? Not exactly. Thick mud walls absorb heat slowly. When the afternoon sun baked the outside of a house, that heat didn't immediately reach the people inside. It took time to move through the walls. By the time much of that heat reached the interior, the sun was already dropping and the desert air was beginning to cool. Then the walls slowly released the stored heat during the night. So Egyptian walls weren't just blocking heat, they were delaying it. But eventually, even a shaded room becomes warm. So Egyptians needed another weapon, wind. Northern winds regularly traveled through the Nile Valley. Buildings could use openings positioned toward the breeze to bring cooler air inside. Meanwhile, warmer air naturally rose and escaped through higher openings. Cool air entered, hot air escaped. No electricity required, and moving air became even more useful when combined with water. Porous clay vessels allowed tiny amounts of water to reach the surface. That water evaporated. Evaporation removed heat. It wasn't modern air conditioning, but the same principle was already happening somewhere else, on your skin. Ancient Egyptians commonly wore linen. It was light, breathable, and allowed air to move around the body. That mattered because the human cooling system is sweat. Sweat places moisture on your skin. When that moisture evaporates, it carries heat away. The clay pot cooled through evaporation. Your body did too. Loose linen helped instead of trapping heat against the skin. But sweating created another problem, water loss. And in extreme Egyptian heat, dehydration could become dangerous quickly. People performing physical labor needed fluids and calories. Bread was a major staple. Beer was also widely consumed, although ancient Egyptian beer was very different from the strong, clear beer people imagine today. Records from communities such as Deir el-Medina show workers receiving regular food and drink rations, because staying cool was only half the battle. You also had to replace what your body was losing, but sometimes the best way to survive the heat was even simpler. Avoid it. Heavy work made more sense earlier in the day before temperatures peaked. During hotter hours, shade became valuable. Then, as evening arrived, cooler air made activity easier again. Even rooftops could provide relief at night, where open air made sleeping more comfortable than inside hot rooms. And the cooling system continued outside the house. Narrow streets created shade. Nearby buildings blocked direct sunlight. Small windows reduced the amount of harsh sunlight entering rooms. Entire neighborhoods could reduce heat exposure through their design. So ancient Egyptians didn't survive the desert because of one brilliant invention. They survived because dozens of small solutions worked together. Thick walls delayed heat. Wind moved air. Water encouraged evaporation. Linen helped sweat work. Food and drink replaced what the body lost. Daily schedules avoided the worst temperatures. Today, when a room becomes hot, we cool the room. Ancient Egyptians changed almost everything around the room. They didn't build a civilization that survived despite the desert. They built one that learned how to live inside it. But there was another part of Egyptian heat survival that's easy to overlook. The Egyptians changed themselves too. Hair, for example, could become uncomfortable in a hot, dusty environment. Many Egyptians kept their natural hair short or shaved their heads, while wigs could be worn when appearance or status demanded it. This also made hygiene easier and helped reduce problems such as lice. So imagine how different daily life could be. Instead of carrying thick hair through hours of heat, dust, sweat, and physical work, you could simply remove the wig when you didn't need it. Ancient Egyptian cleanliness wasn't just cosmetic either. Bathing and washing were important parts of Egyptian life. When your environment is hot, dry, dusty, and filled with physical labor, removing sweat and dirt becomes more than a luxury. It becomes part of making that environment livable. And if you were wealthy, you could take heat protection even further. Some wealthy Egyptian homes and estates included gardens, trees, open courtyards, shaded porches, and pools. We even have New Kingdom architectural evidence showing gardens surrounded by mud brick walls with trees, orchards, and bodies of water. Large houses could have central rooms raised above the surrounding rooms with high windows and roof openings designed to improve ventilation and catch the northern wind. Trees were particularly valuable. In a landscape where shade could mean the difference between standing under direct sunlight and escaping it completely, growing a tree beside your home wasn't just decoration. It created another barrier between you and the sun. Pools and gardens also transformed wealthy estates into spaces that felt completely different from the exposed desert outside. But there's an important catch. Most Egyptians did not live like this. Gardens required land and constant watering, and large shaded estates were luxuries of the wealthy. A farmer working in a field or a laborer hauling stone couldn't simply retreat into a private garden, which means surviving Egyptian heat also depended heavily on who you were. The wealthy could redesign their surroundings. Workers often had to endure much greater exposure, and that makes the Egyptian solution more interesting, because there wasn't one universal experience of the heat. After centuries of building beside the Nile, Egyptians didn't need a thermometer to understand which direction the comfortable winds came from. They didn't need modern thermal equations to know that a high room could release rising hot air. They simply had generations of observation. Build here, open this wall, shade that space, catch this wind, avoid that sun. The result was something we would now call passive cooling. Cooling that happens because of the design itself rather than a machine. And that may be the strangest answer to the original question. Ancient Egyptians technically lived without air conditioning, but many of the jobs we expect an air conditioner to perform, blocking heat, moving air, encouraging evaporation, and creating cooler spaces, were already being performed. They just weren't inside one machine. They were scattered across the entire way Egyptians lived.